Oh man, how embarrassing was that fly joke? That's how I kicked off my podcast series was with this really terrible fly joke, man. That was pretty embarrassing.
You're a douche.
Yeah, that's that's what my girlfriend says too about me every night before we go to bed.
Uh, could you turn off the lights, Calvin? Oh, and by the way, you're a
You're a
douche.
giant douche. All right, well, hello and welcome back to the You Show Show. It is the show where you show things. I am your host, Kelvin Laser McMurray. I don't think I introduced myself at the first episode.
I don't think you did either, but you
I,
can always cut and paste it if you need to.
I should and just make it like totally
Joyce.
like make it sound like it's like horrendously cut in there. Anyway, um, I am joined today again with my very good friend Ian Merritt. Ian, welcome back to the studio. Welcome back.
Thanks, man.
As you can see, we spared no expense. We got the top of the line everything in the studio. Top of the line lights and cameras, video cameras. We got 8K video cameras over there in the corner. We got a secretary. We got she's she's going through a divorce. She's going through a hard time. She's going through child custody battle. She dealt with some drug abuse in her early days
I
of
love
court.
I love that you went straight to what should I have here? Really nice lights, really annoyingly big cameras. Oh, and a
We got a
secretary.
secretary. She's going through a divorce. She's going through a hard time. So she's having I got a production assistant. I think he gives me coffee. I think he shits in it.
Yep.
No expenses spared. Anyway, last time we spoke about Control by Page of the Lion. Very good album, 2 thumbs up. And that was the album that you shared with me. And the
Right?
album that I shared with you was Cosmogramma by Flying Lotus.
Yeah.
I guess let's start at the beginning. What are your first initial thoughts on Cosmogramma by Flying Lotus?
So the best part about this is that I'm totally going to ask you more questions than you ask me this time. So
Okay.
like, because I know that the last one I brought to the table, so I was giddy to talk about it. So I think, and I'm also giddy to talk about this, but I think that this is like, I think it's fun to kind of put the host on the hot seat.
All right, deal.
Yeah,
That's where I
and
love to be.
yeah, no, obviously.
That's why I got into video post production, baby. We just love being the center of attention. That's a general stereotype about post production people. They just love being in the limelight.
Oh my God. Or also, and by limelight you mean in dark corners, lurking and
Yeah,
hissing at anybody who even like turns on their cell phone. Like,
exactly. Yeah, my favorite day at work is when people are like, "Here's your project files. We'll see you in 8 to 10 hours. Bye." And it's like, "See
yeah,
you later. Bye. Thanks. And can you turn the light off
peace.
on the way out? Thanks. Bye."
Exactly. I have a question for you.
Okay. Well, let's start with. I guess let's just start with
Yeah,
the
no, no, it's
initial.
it's a flying lotus. It's a flying lotus question.
Okay. All right. Oh, if it's trivia, I really don't know that much.
No, 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 no. It's not trivia. The one thing. Okay, so when you approached me with this project, you were like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm gonna send you something. You're gonna send me something. I'm gonna send you something. I'm like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin's gonna send me some like weird Radiohead remix B-side that I'm gonna be like, all right, dude, I bought that EP in like '98
Yeah.
and I totally listened to it, but you surprised me because we both have a love of Tom York, Radiohead, very creative people. I always thought that you were gonna send me something really quirky, DJ Shadow, something along those lines, something that we both have professed to each other that we really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw me this curveball with Flying Lotus.
Yeah.
Now, I did not have a ton of background on Flying Lotus.
Okay.
I am not. I haven't really been into electronic music since like the late '90s. Like
Mm-hmm.
my kind of knowledge base starts and ends with trip hop and kind of the like late '80s British big beat stuff or late '90s big beat stuff. And so
Okay.
for me, I was like, okay, cool, this should be fun. And I flipped it on and I was like, all right, my dudes, I need to listen to this with headphones and I
Yeah.
need to know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And how did you find your way to this record? Because I found my way to this record because of you. How did you find your way to this record?
Well, we'll talk about why I shared it, and then I guess how to answer your immediate question is so okay. So I follow hashtags on Instagram because I like to see, so I follow hashtag Radiohead, hashtag Tom York. because I'm a big fan of both said things. And I had found a person posted an image or like a collection of images or something, and it was all the albums and all the music work that Tom York has been a part of that's not, labelly his. It's where he's been the secondary part of a much bigger thing. And most of it I had seen. A lot of it was like Tom York's solo work from Suspiria, including like The Eraser, up to even like some of his more like kind of rare things that he's done that I have as well. And then there was this album, and I didn't know what it was because there's no labeling on the artwork. He just shared a photo of the vinyl record that he had. And so then I did a little bit of homework and a little bit of research, and then that's when I found this album, Cosmogramma, by Flying Lotus. And I'd heard of Flying Lotus, but I'm not going to lie, I had for some reason in my mind put it up for like, I always thought it was more of a rap group, to be 1,000,000% honest, like maybe a little bit more hip-hop, and it's not at all. I was completely 1,000,000% wrong, and I don't know how that thought got put in my brain pan, but it did. And so I'm the freak weirdo who still buys music. I don't stream it, so I bought it on iTunes, and yeah, I fell in love with it. I really like this album. It's an album that I feel like you will know within the first minute if you're gonna like it or not.
Right.
If you make it to minute 1 and 1 second and you're like, I don't know, like let's just pause it. Let's just like thanks for checking out the first minute of this album. I'll see you later. Bye. And I really like it because it's a very bizarre album, but in a good way. And then so you were talking about on our first episode, the last time we spoke, you were talking about the thought process that you would put behind what you were going to pick for me, and you were like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to stump him or if I should give him something. I don't know. So I had this weird feeling, and I don't know why, that
was it The Force?
Yeah, I'm done. Star Wars, man. I don't know, man. I'm gonna just have like I'm gonna have like a 3-hour episode of me talking about Star Wars, just alone in the dark corner where I work, just talking about that. But not today. But I had this feeling that you were gonna pick one of your like heavy metal screaming bands, and not that I would have opposed it. I would have done it. I would have done it with a smile on my face. And
right.
And I just had this feeling like you because it's always the question with something like this. It's like, do you want to pull somebody out of their comfort zone, or do you want to give them something that you think they might genuinely like and take away with them? And I think that's going to be kind of the experiment with this. So far, I think people have been picking wholehearted, earnest things, and so then you did as well. And I was like, oh, so then because I was going to share probably either like some Animal Collective or Dan Deacon, something that I know would have taken you out of your comfort zone. And then when you shared this like really nice album with me that I thoroughly enjoyed and still continue to listen to this day, I'm not going to throw it in the trash can and light it on fire. I kind of then thought too about something that I could share with you that you might like. And I thought about, you and I saw Tom York's solo work live here in Chicago, where we both reside. And
we both lost our minds. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that show was really good. I had a lot of fun that night. And this album, if you are a fan of Tom York's solo work, his electronic work, if you're like a fan of Radiohead's Kid A, I think you will like this album. I would venture to bet. But yeah, I really like it, and I have I know I have 2 more of his albums, California and shit, it's called Firaga, which I think it's a Final Fantasy reference. Maybe it's a real word, but I know it comes from Final Fantasy. I don't know if that's where they got it, because there's like the magic spells. So there's like fire, Fyra, and then Firagra, and that's what they named their album. It's kind of funny. And that one has David Lynch in it. Of all people, David Lynch is on a trippy electronic music album, and it's actually a really good song. I think it's called The Fire Is Coming, or The Sky Is Falling, or something like that. But anyway, but yeah, this was the first album of Flying Lotus that I checked out, that I really like. This is an album you put on while you're working, and like your work productivity goes up like 200%. It's guaranteed. That's actually a scientific fact. They proved it in 2017. And yeah, it's really good. So I like it. It's bizarre. It's trippy. It has a lot of things in it. If you really pay attention to it, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, electronic music is just some guy at a keypad just pushing buttons. And, you can be right. But there are a lot of things in this album that I think are more than just purchased sample, saxophone WAV that was then plugged into like an editing machine. I think that he went out and recorded a lot of this, and because like the list of people that are involved in this album is pretty long, and there are a lot of people that like I don't know who they are, but I'm not super privy on like names and music, so yeah, it's a good album, and I thought I would share it and talk about it. So
I love it. For me, it's funny because it is you mentioned something like perfectly a great kind of all-encompassing thought is that if you don't get this record after 60 seconds, you're not going to get the record. And I think you're totally right there. It's one of those. It's got everything I loved about kind of beat making and syncopation and finding kind of rhythms in not only various instrumentation, but also how just kind of noodling and free form music combines to find a pattern, and it's one of those things that it's almost like it's very interesting because the guy who created it is this guy Stephen Ellison, who is actually related to John Coltrane.
Okay.
Turns out John Coltrane is his grand nephew of John Coltrane. So he has this like heritage of musicality that runs deep in him. And it's so interesting to listen to. It's very free jazz. It's very Sun Ra. But then you also mix that and combine that with like the Chemical Brothers and like Roni Size and these guys and guys like that who made these crazy beats and then on top of it, you've got some amazing players who are playing live instruments on this one, and it's so interesting, and it's all over the goddamn place, and I'm expecting that after you listen to it once, you want it to be all over the place. You want it to take you to places that you're not expecting. You want it to kind of give you a ride that you're like, oh, cool, I'm gonna take this. It looks like a roller coaster. It doesn't look cool. But you get on it and like you're not even above ground. You're underground digging tunnels and running around in a corner. Like it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways, but it brings you to places that you're not expecting. And I really enjoy that in it. And but yet it's still these little snippets of music. They're not refined verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. They're not. It's not a song structure that most people are used to. So it's these little. You've got lead bass, you've got lead drums. They're all kind of fighting for airtime, and it's fun as hell. Like there's some great like slow down strings moments. There's some great singing. It just is like it's just all over the place, which I love. And it keeps me on my guard, which I'm really kind of happy about. To get back to David Lynch, by the way, one of the Pixies' famous songs is actually a David Lynch tune called "In Heaven," and so I always think that David Lynch has more effect on music than he gets credit for. So
that's funny. He's like, yeah, he's just one of those guys that he just shows up and it's like, oh, hey, there he is, and it makes sense.
Right.
He came in. My favorite appearance of David Lynch ever till the end of time is completely unforgettable. Louis C.K. had his show. I know Louis C.K.'s fired, he's gone, but he used to have his show, and in the show there is a season, I can't remember which, where he's auditioning to host kind of like a Jimmy Fallon type show, Conan O'Brien type show. I think he's taking over for Jay Leno. Like, Jay Leno's leaving, so they need a replacement. So, Louis is playing a character in his show, Louis. It's not, obviously really him in real life. Anyway, he needs to find like a comedy coach and like somebody that can guide him on hosting a TV show, and it's fucking David Lynch. And it's probably the funniest thing because just looking at him, like he's a very stern man with hair is oh my god. Anyway, I was cracking up. But anyway,
and his personality is like dry, deadpan, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's not an emphatic guy or he doesn't have his sense of humor is straight ahead.
Yeah, and I have this master class, and basically the master class is him yelling at you for like 2 hours of like. Just do your homework, study, and write a good script, and just keep writing on it. Go outside and smoke cigarettes and drink red wine, and then your script will come to you. And just
don't be a cocksucker.
Yeah, just don't be a fuck. Just don't be a fuck and go out and write and make good movies. Problem solved. Yeah, that's David Lynch in a shell. So he's also in a Flying Lotus. But anyway, but yeah, this album is definitely all over the place, which I see, and I love that. Like there's the people that they love like their 90s grunge music, and there's definitely a time and a place for that, but like you were saying, where it's just like, oh, here comes the chorus again. And I'm a person that I like things a little bit more orchestral, where it seems planned and it seems spontaneous, but it seems planned, and it also seems like it's by design. It's somebody that sat down and fucking fiddled with it until it made sense. And I guess for some reason, I know like generally, like your bands like, I don't know, like the Ramones, like it's the same thing. I get it, but it's different with electronic music somehow because you're capable of doing things that instruments are not capable of doing. And I guess I like those sounds that people can come up with. I like beats. Like I said, like you were talking about earlier, like, DJ Shadow is definitely within one of my top 5 favorite, musicians, artists, whatever of all time. And this fits right in there with that as well, for sure.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
And then we also get a couple of appearances from our Lord and Savior Tom York, praise be his name. And when I went to Radiohead last summer, I took my girlfriend Nat, and I told her that if Tom York should like point at me in the audience and ask me to leave with him, like I have to do it. And she was like, what? And I was like, if he points at me in the audience and is like, you have to leave and come with me today, and like I go live with him for the rest of my life, like I have to do it. So I was like, you can have my bank account because I won't need it. I'll be with Tom York, and but this could be the last day you ever see me ever again. And she's like, is this some weird sex thing? And I was like, I don't know. That's up to Tom York. That's not up to me. Like, that's not my decision to make. I don't know. Anyway,
I need to know you're there somewhere. I need to know you're out there. Just need to know you're out there. Need to know you're out there somewhere.
Sorry, Nat. That's in Tom York's hands now.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
If Tom York should ever listen to this, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's That's this album. I don't know. There's not. It's hard to talk about in depth because it is a roller coaster. It is. It's very dreamlike. It's very ethereal. Like it always reminds me of like when you're in a dream, and like you get from like it goes from like A to B to Q, but in your dream it makes sense. You know what
Totally.
I mean? That's this album. Like once you're in a place, it's kind of like, how did we get here? Because again, it's kind of hard to focus on the album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, like 90% of the time I listen to this album, I'm playing a video game or doing work or something, and I still enjoy it. I love it. But yeah, it's very jazz like what you were talking about, where again, it seems like there's elements that are riffing off each other. Like one thing will kind of push another element to go somewhere else, which is by definition the definition of jazz, because that's what jazz is. Somebody in the band feels something and they start zigzagging when everyone else was going straight, and
Zigzagging.
Exactly. And then everyone else around them has to refocus their parts to match, and then person B does the same thing, and jazz is something that you either love or hate. I actually like jazz. Speaking of Coltrane, I have a couple of his albums. I like jazz a lot.
No, it's one of those things that's truly like avant-garde, right? Like it's I think someone described it as Afro-futuristic, and it's like there's moments of not only jazz but also like hip hop and industrial and house, and then also like British big beat, and then there's moments of like classical. There's live strings on this, and there's a couple saxophone solos, and it sounds, the way we're describing it sounds like it shouldn't make sense, but it does.
Yeah.
And the beats themselves and the synth creation. I mean, the beats could be a lead player in the songs. They propel, but then also tell people when to change. And it's got this great, just, it's well rounded, and it's smart. It makes you think. You're like, man, how'd they do that? Like I found myself like rewinding, and I don't do that a lot with records. I like to hear things where I'm like, oh, I hear the whole song. I hit pause on this record all the time.
That's cool.
And I was like, what the hell just happened? And I'll go back 20 seconds but I find that to be great. And now I can listen to it. Like that was when I was trying to give it like a good, honest listen. Now I'll just put it on and just let it roll. And I hope that my, Spotify commercials don't get in the way of what I'm feeling. Cause it's just, it is a continuous beat, it doesn't have a whole lot of stops. And so it flows even when tracks flip over, it flows from track to track. And so you kind of want to listen to the whole thing. And even if you don't know where you are in the record, you're like, just keep going. Just whatever's happening, keep going.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. And there's never like, sometimes, like I think of the band, there's another really great band that I love, Uncle. And they're also very electronic. They're also very orchestral. In their music, they hire like actual orchestras with the full shebang to make music with what they're doing. I love Uncle. They're also in my top 5 favorites. And their songs are super memorable. And I feel like they try to make each song as impactful as possible. Not so much in their later work. Their later work gets a little bit more muddled, but definitely in their earlier stuff. And there again, Tom York worked with them on their first album. But there have been moments where I will wake up with one of their songs in my head. Because like a lot of their work has gone into like TV commercials and movies, so maybe I saw something and it pops up. TV shows as well. Uncle is all over. You can stick them in like any movie, and I guarantee Uncle has a song for your movie. I guarantee it. And and so I will wake up and I'll be like, damn, like what album is that from? Because they do have a lot of albums, and then it's kind of fun to go through and find that song again. Oh, there it is, and then listen to it and get that fixed. But like with this album, that's never really happened to me, because again, it's this whole ethereal thing that like I never like get started for work and it's like, oh, what song do I want to listen to? Oh, how about Satellite by Flying Lotus? Because again, it's like every time I play it, it's like you just click play on the album and then you go do your thing and you're set for the next 48 minutes, I think the album is, something like that. So it's kind of funny. It's not a song by song album, and it's kind of like what we were saying last time too with Control by Pedro the Lion. It's an album that generally you'll probably sit down and just listen to the whole thing while you're driving a car, doing work, cooking, cleaning, whatever.
And it's way better than Dave Matthews' Satellite, which is yes, yeah, and again, yeah, you never quite. I mean, those who obviously have listened to the album over and over and over, they still might not know what song they're listening to, and I think that's okay. It's an ambiguity because it's all about music. Music is created to tell a story, obviously, and to send a feeling, to create a false sense of something, and that we as listeners get to listen to and can interpret as like, oh, this is a sad song, or this is a energy song, or this is a frenetic dance song, or this is go tell it on the mountain. Like we all interpret music however we interpret it, but like however you listen to this, you are going to get a feeling, and your pace of life quickens, and whatever I'm doing, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm doing it a little bit quicker. I think that's kind of a fun, like, I like not having control over that, and so like I want music that gives me a feeling, either brings me back to something I've loved previously, or a memory, or just like, oh my God, this is brand new. What is this? I love music that triggers a physical emotion out of me, and I think that this record does exactly that. Like I can listen. There are plenty of Radiohead records that I've listened to for years and years and years where I'm like, okay, that's okay. But then there's a couple of them where I'm like, all right, I am back in 1990 whatever, and I am having the best time of my life. And I think that this is one of those records that can, if I listen to it enough, will in 5-6 years be a part of that lexicon, And so I kind of dig that it gives me, it's visceral, right? Like it gives you, it's something to do. And I appreciate that.
And like I said, going back to kind of like the tinkering thing. So again, like, because again, there is singing in this album. There are lyrics. There are real instruments. Like I said, I always have a problem when people are like, oh, it's all on a computer. And it's like, no, you can still integrate it. And if you're smart enough, you know how. And then on top of that, there is also, experimentation, but also experimentation in recording.
Yeah.
And I feel like, okay, so for example, there is a song called Table Tennis. And in the song, you hear table tennis, all those noises, that the clacks of the paddle on the table, and he finds a way to make music out of it. And to me,
the force of your gravity, it defines my tendency. Is equal to throwing myself at you.
like, I love that stuff, because I don't know about you, but like, I'll be in my house and it'll be dead silent, and I'll hear my dishwasher, and the dishwasher's like re, and it's like, damn, that's a fucking beat right there, dude. And it's like, I wish I was smart enough, because I don't know anything about audio. I wish I was smart enough to like hook up a fucking microphone and just like quickly record that, and make a song out of it. How do you record your dishwasher scrubbing dishes into a song? And this, I know that sounds super stupid, but like, this album kind of does that. It reminds Aphex Twin does the exact same thing. So does Venetian Snares, actually. A lot of people don't like him, but I do. And where like Aphex Twin has one song, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a plastic ball that he bounces on the table, so it gets that like and then he turns it into music. And to me, that's fucking bananas. Like, there's Jack White, who can do amazing things on a guitar, and then there's Aphex Twin, who can drop a plastic ball and make something really interesting. And this album, it definitely does that. There's like, again, I could just picture him kind of probably working on a lot of this at like 2:00 in the morning, because you just lose track of time and probably everything to get to a point to make some of this where you just dive in head first and go nuts. And I appreciate that a lot. I think that experimentation in art is the best thing. And again, I know, like, again, more classical music does it, but you consider and you can plan everything you want to death. Like a lot of movies today, like I like the Marvel movies, but those movies are fucking planned from the very second they go into production. There's zero room for improv. There's zero room for anything, because they're like, if the camera moves 1 degree to the left, our, you know, pre-animated rotoscoping fucking 3D previs is gonna go off whack. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's set in stone. Like it's a piece unto itself, but it's set in stone.
Exactly.
This is not. You feel like this could go off the rails at any moment, or tie back together at any moment.
Exactly.
No, I totally dig that. One thing you tapped on that I love the idea of this, and this goes back to something I went and saw Dave Brubeck when I was in college. His son was a professor at my college, and so he played a master class. So he was like 80 years old or whatever, and came out, and he's this classically trained jazz pianist who just he really changed the face of jazz with working in new time signatures. I mean, his most famous song is Take 5.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and
I know.
The beat for Take 5 is in 5/4 time. So 5/4 time is not something that we can comprehend with our brains, because it's, unless you're a musician, it's really not. You gain an extra beat.
Yes.
And he was describing to the audience how he came up with Take 5. And as a kid, he was on a farm, and he was riding on the tractor, and the tractor was riding. It was a hot day, and he was really sweaty, and he was riding on the tractor, and the tractor was playing a beat with just the mechanics of the tractor was playing a beat. So dud, dud, dud. And it was playing in a rhythm that was different than his own heartbeat, because he was so tired and so sweaty, he could feel his own heartbeat in his chest. And they were playing at different rhythms. And he was like, but they would combine every fifth beat. He was like, how can I make music where one hand is doing one thing and the other hand is doing something else, and they meet in the middle every now and again?
Yeah.
And he came up with this, the polyrhythm technique that he used for years and years and years, but it all came from when he was a kid. It's the same thing as you listening to your washing machine and your dishwasher, and the same reason that I listen. I don't know about you, but I always try to every now and then I'll find myself matching up the beats of a song to the lines on a road, like things like that, where you're trying to find connections and all this stuff. And I just find that stuff it's so mundane and so every day, but it's so brilliant. And so you're right about this record. I'm not gonna like say it's the new Dave Brubeck level record, but I do want to say that it's carrying on in that tradition of finding new ways to make music and doing it in a non. It's not atonal by any means. We've made it sound like it's this crazy smorgasbord of roller coasters and slide whistles, but it's like it's really well balanced, and it's beautiful in its density, but also it can be sparse. The one thing I love about records like this, and I think I love it about almost all records that I love listening to on headphones, is that I love trying to pick out little pieces of it. Like, I want to, where was that little lick? I heard a lick. And then you go back and you find this guitar or synthesizer or drum beat, and you're like, man, that's the one right there. And then that's usually what hooks you into a song. And so there's these great moments in this record where you're like, fuck that. Just trying to decipher what's going on is harder than not. I think, like you end up like, you get hooked on these little things that you're listening for, and you're like, man, that's really cool. And you're like, shit, I want to hear it again. So you're like, where is it? Oh, it comes up in this other song too, and there's repetition in that sense. And it has that jazz feel where you'll see, I used to see jazz shows as a kid and in my 20s and later where hooks and lines would resurface, within a show. So they might start in one song and they'll show up in another song. And it's a thinking man's music where you're always kind of figuring out what's coming next, but you're okay with that. You're not upset about it. You're just like, all right, cool, I'm ready for this. What are you going to throw at the wall and what's going to stick?
Yeah.
I find that just to be so awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun, and it's a different way to make music. It's this.
Hold on one sec.
I open up.
What's up? I'm on a call. FBI going backwards. All right. I think you should keep that in there.
Maybe.
Yeah. Open up. FBI going backwards. Make you work from home.
Yeah. Thanks, COVID. Today's episode brought to you in part by COVID, the #1 breath maker.
And the Republican Party.
Yeah. Oh God. And I think too, this album is very much a product of its time. Like, I don't think.
Yeah.
This couldn't have been made in the 80s, man. This could have been made maybe in the 90s. Richard D. James, aka Aphex Twin, maybe could have pulled off, because he was making his own equipment in the 90s that is actually now used in studios, and he built in his garage because he was bored. But that dude's insane, in both the good and the bad way. I always just feel like there's dead bodies in that dude's basement every time I see him. Because, like, have you ever seen him perform live, Aphex Twin?
Whenever I see him, I just see that his face on the really hot bikini lady. Like, that's how I see Aphex Twin. It doesn't, no matter what you could tell me, he looks like someone took Shaggy's head and put it on a buxom California blonde in a string bikini. That's all I see of Aphex Twin. That's
it. So what you're talking about is in his earlier work, he was putting his face on his albums, and they were always very different, but they were always extreme close-ups of his face, so you couldn't see his ears or like much of his hair. And then Chris Cunningham, the director, made a bunch of music videos, and then he incorporated that. He put Richard D. James's face on like children and had him go effectively terrorize an old lady. And then he made the window licker. Yeah, I love it too. And then he had the window licker music video where he puts Richard D. James's face on a bunch of bikini models wearing very, very loose attire, spraying each other with water and champagne, but they're all with these creepy faces. That's another music video. Like, just sit somebody down and put that on and press play and just be like, just watch this. Just shut up and just watch it. Just you'll live. And but anyway, watching that dude live is like, he just sits in a chair. It's fucking hilarious because his live music is really good, but he just sits in the music, and then he'll like turn like 6 knobs and wait a minute, and then he comes back. It's fucking hilarious. But anyway, Cosmogramma, man, it's a good album. I always like to kind of talk about, kind of if you like A, B, and C, you might like this. Some other recent discoveries. A recent discovery that's very much in the same vein of this. It's an album called Fight, 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 and it's by Amon Tobin, who I'm a huge fan of, and Two Fingers, who I don't know anything about. They came together, and it's this album called Fight, Fight, Fight. It's actually really, really good. I highly recommend it. And then another band too, another group, not a band. People point that out. I call all music groups bands. Like Dan Deacon is a band. He's not a band. He's a dude that records in his own house. He's not a band. And then I call everything vinyl records. Like, I know it's totally wrong, and I'm sure there's gonna be like music lovers that are cringing at all of this. So. So fuck it. I just, own it, whatever. So the band, The Comet Is Coming, would definitely fit inside of this shoe as well. They too actually there's a saxophone player in their band, and then I don't know if they connect the saxophone to an electronic device or do all of it in post-production.
I bet they do.
I have no idea.
They do it live.
I've seen them do some of the sounds live, and he has several saxophones, but he connects it to a didgeridoo. It's a computer from the future, and it makes some crazy fucking sounds.
Sure it is, Calvin. Sure it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's it's my music now. I was taking piano lessons until COVID hit, and I haven't seen my I call him my piano therapist. He was a super cool dude. If you're listening to this, Wilson, I miss you. I miss you. You're my therapist, buddy. And I'm sorry I haven't seen him since like fucking February, man.
That's great.
Wilson, come home. Wilson from what's that movie? Castaway. Wilson. He's just this ball floating in the ocean, and I'm Tom Hanks.
Perfect.
Yeah, he was this cool dude. He's like 10 years younger than me, and he's like 10 times wiser than I'll ever be. And he was my therapist, and I miss him a lot. So, but anyway, how did we get here? I don't know. It's like
other bands to listen to that you think would fit this, or DJ Shadow for sure. Money Mark, who was a collaborator of the Beastie Boys and DJ Shadow for a long time, and then bring you back to like free jazz, Sun Ra and Ornette Coleman, and there's some really there's flecks of beauty and all this. Roni Size is another one that's very much a like late 90s. The beats are very Roni Size. They're frenetic. They're frantic. They're faster than they should be. Like there's so much to it. It's, that's what I love. And then just the layering and I mean it's for anybody who loves kind of out there knob twiddling noise. But this is much more graspable, I guess. That's not even a word, is it?
It is now. No, I agree, and I think that like I think too, if for any reason people were ever interested in getting into electronic music, I feel like actually this could be a good starting point. I remember once. I really like the band. They are a band. That is the correct terminology this time. I really like the band Animal Collective. They're in my top 5 as well. I love them. And I remember a friend of mine once asked what I liked about them. And so one thing that they do, not all the time, but often, is they will create a segment. Doodle 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 doodle, like in My Girls, for example. It's just this. It's this rhythm, it's this beat that is on layer 1, and then the song plays, and then they throw something on top of that, and then a minute after that, or whatever, 30 seconds, whatever, then another thing gets thrown on top of that, and like syncopation, like then after X amount of time, it all syncs up, and you're now hearing what was one thing now intertwined with 3 other things to become one new thing. And I see like shit like that I love. Like I could eat that fucking all day long. And so I was explaining this to my friend Mark once, and I was like, it just starts out with one layer and then they add more, and I was like, I love it. And he's like, that's exactly the reason why I hate Animal Collective. So I guess, okay, it's not for everybody. Okay, touche, that's fair. Animal Collective is definitely not for everybody. I remember you once said they're boring, and that's fine.
I respect them. Not my favorite.
That's totally A-okay. That's welcome here on this show. That's okay. I mean, I'm gonna, block your cell phone after this, but beyond that, that's totally fine.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Wouldn't be. Yeah, exactly. Oh shit, Ian's calling. Turn off the lights, babe.
To quote your girlfriend, Calvin, you're a douche.
You're a douche. Yeah, sometimes, but it could be worse. There's other things I would rather not be, so I'll take that. But yeah, it's good. I think I would like. I've always wondered too. I kind of think of like I wonder what like a jazzophile, is that a word? A jazz loving person.
Jazzphile.
A jazzphile. That sounds so gross.
I know. Check it out if you like it. I think that anybody who's into just kind of something different, a little left to center, and if you like electronic beats, it's a great place to start.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think it's good. I think it's a jazzy dream. It's an electronic jazzy dream, baby, coming at you in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic. It's coming for you without a mask on, baby, and it's gonna penetrate your ear holes all night long.
Oh man, I love it. Good to talk to you, Calvin.
You too, buddy. Thanks for being on. Ian Merritt, everybody. All right. Well, I've recorded a couple of these now, and I still don't know how to end it. So,
fuck it.
Bye.